everyone. Good evening. It's Memorial Day. I hope you are enjoying a long weekend. Most importantly, I hope you take a little bit of time to reflect on the benefit that we've been enjoying in this country as a free country, and all the freedom that we have been exercising thanks to all the veterans out there who has been sacrificed so much to give us the benefit of enjoying what we're doing in this peaceful country. So today, oh my God, I am so happy. I've got 2 veterans, and I didn't know that more people wanted. I kept saying that, what about female veteran? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that, people are ready to come on. So we're going to have more. Anybody who want to come on, tell their story. But today we have 2 wonderful veterans. And I'm gonna let Sarah start with the opening, and then I'm gonna jump in, and then we're gonna save most of the time asking questions to this 2 veterans. Now today's show might go over 30 minutes. I'm very sure it will go over 30 minutes. So feel free to stay as long as you can, and feel free to leave if you have to. But I hope that you are joining us, and even tag a friend, call a friend, jump on in. Go ahead, Sarah.
All right. Do you want to record?
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Hello, gentlemen. And I am so happy that you all can join us. But to save us time, I'm just go very quick introducing myself. I'm Sarah M. I'm from Cambodia. I grew up there and struggled through the communist Khmer Rouge regime when they managed to kill about 2 million people, and I'm grateful that I was able to survive. And not only that, I was able to come here to United States, and thank goodness. And thank to all our veterans that sacrificed their life to help us to have a freedom to live in this country. So if you want to know more about me, my website is saraim.com, SARAIM.com. And I wrote my story in a book, how I survived the killing fields. And now I am a speaker. So that's all I want to say today. That's back to you, Lee.
Thank you, Sarah. So if you have not known who we are, so that's Sarah, my half. And my name is Lea Tran. We are starting this conversation since last March. And this month we talk about, every month we find a theme. So this month we talk about courage and determinations. And my background is I am also a former refugee, as known as boat people that fled Vietnam communists back in 1979. And I want to say that we have a great relationship with America because, yes, American soldiers were occupying a good chunk of time in Vietnam. And there's a lot of memories from all these veterans who had served in Vietnam and beyond. But my story is like, we fled Vietnam communists, and we got saved, and then we got sponsored to go to America. And my story is a long journey, but I had told on the TEDx stage, and I also had published my story, my memoir last September. So if you want to find out more about who I am, you can just go to my website, leatran.com, LEATRAN.com. But today is Memorial Day. We want to honor our veterans and people right now who are serving our country and who has given up so much their personal goals and things that they need to do to put on hold so they can fight for us. So today we have 2 veterans that joining us in our conversation, and they have really juicy story to tell. And I'm going to introduce one who that I have known for almost 10 years. And from Toastmaster, we belong to the same Toastmaster club, and his name is Arthur Royce. And Art had told the story, I think, about him actually saved a ship, a boat, refugee boat. But somehow it was so long ago, I kind of forgot until I wrote my book. And then he told me the story again. So I just got chill. I got goosebumps. So it's nothing better than asking him to go on here and share his story with everyone. So I'm going to take a quick introduction about Art. In 1980, he was serving the US Navy, deployed on a Western Pacific cruise. And he was on a nuclear guided missile cruiser with a crew of around 1,000 sailors. And these cruises are typically 6 to 9 months long, while the South China Sea refugee were spotted, and the ship turned about, and the duty working party was called to bring the people on board to the ship. I wish I was in that boat. That'd be so good. Makeshift living quarters were built on helicopter deck and the art part of the ship. 111 Vietnamese refugees were brought on board our ship to their ship, on his ship on that day. So he's going to tell us that experience about rescuing the refugee boat people. Welcome, Art.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks, Sarah. So yeah, as you said, I believe it was May of 1980, I believe early in the month. We were in the South China Sea, just as part of normal cruising. There's a number of things that you get together with other ships and so on, but it was, I want to say, early to midday. And I don't remember the exact order of things, but the duty working party, which I happened to be part of that day, was called. And then the ship started making a very, very sharp turn. And on a large ship, when you make a sharp turn, it moves and it banks quite a bit. So I remember we did a turnaround. The lookout apparently had spotted refugees, and I'm not sure we would say they were on boats. They were more on rafts.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask more in detail about this whole entire thing, but we're gonna let Sarah introduce Larry Belk, another veteran who have a tight relationship with Vietnam.
Okay. Yes, Larry Belk. He was in the Army Security Agency from 1970 to 73 and served in Vietnam from May 1971 to April 72. During that time in Vietnam, he was able to meet and become friends with several Vietnamese people who share with him the language, customs, music, and foods of Vietnam. In 1979, he was able to volunteer to help a local Baptist association with one of the 2 Vietnamese refugee boat families that they sponsor and relocated to our country. It was an opportunity for him to develop the friendship with them by sharing American English, custom, music, and foods. It was him giving back what people in Vietnam have given to him. So welcome to our show, Larry. So it's so nice to hear that story.
Thank you, Sarah. It was an experience that I was able to share similar to what I received in Vietnam from some of the Vietnamese people that I met. Serving in the middle of a combat base in a secure area. When I first arrived to Vietnam, I didn't realize that I would be able to learn a lot about the country, but I felt it was an opportunity to learn about a country that I was going to live in for 11 months. We're really supposed to be 12, but we were cut back to an 11 months there because Nixon had started the cutback. But once I arrived there, and was at our duty station. They gave us an orientation and said for us not to have anything to do with the Vietnamese soldiers that were on our base, not to walk by their barracks at night, not to go in it, and you know, to keep away, because there had been a lot of conflict between the American soldiers there and the Vietnamese soldiers. The main reason was because of lack of understanding what the culture was. Yeah. Where in the US, people were made fun of if two men were walking arm in arm or hand in hand. But in Vietnam, the culture is that a man and a woman does not show affection in public, and you don't walk that way. But for good friends that are men, it's acceptable. And so when the American soldiers saw the Vietnamese soldiers walking arm in arm or hand in hand, they would call them certain names that would cause a fight to break out. And so they were kind of, because they didn't know the culture, they were afraid of them. I was fortunate enough to come back to our barracks one day and see our mama son who cleaned our room and washed our clothes and everything for us. We paid so much per month. Speaking to a young Vietnamese soldier that was stationed on our base. And he was showing her some pictures of his family. And so being curious, I walked over and I said, could I see your pictures? And he said, oh, sure. And he showed them to me. And because I was stationed up north at Phu Bai, which is close to Hue, we were not allowed to go into the city, Hue. So I asked him if he would, if I gave him a roll of film, would he take some pictures of Hue for me? And he said yes. And so I went in the room, got a roll of color film out from the refrigerator and brought it to him. And he said, okay, I come back. So the next weekend, that evening, on a Sunday evening, I had her to knock at my room door. I opened it and there he was. He said, here's the film, but get 2 copies made, one for me, one for you. I said, okay. When I got the pictures back, it was all of himself with his girlfriends. There were three girls, and they were all in front of statues and everything, but wasn't what type picture I expected to receive. However, I gave him his film and his photographs. And I said, okay, could you please take pictures of just the monuments, just the pictures without people? And he said, okay. So the next time he went in, he did. We became good friends. He invited me back to his barracks. I was able to go in, meet all of his fellow Vietnamese soldiers, and got to know them. And I was allowed to go in any time of day or night. That's not what they told me to do when I first got there, but we became good friends. And in return, he and some of his friends met some of the other guys in our room, became friends, and they had somebody to speak to as they walked down the street. And so it kind of made a better relationship between the Vietnamese soldiers and some of us on our base.
So
as he was able to give me more information, we played the Vietnamese chess, that with the little round pieces with Chinese characters on top, and he taught me how to do that. And so the very first game that I played him, I checkmated him in about 4 moves. Completely took him by surprise. And I never won another game. But
so, this is wonderful. I love Art's gonna tell us the aspect of his interacting with the boats, and Larry is telling us the culture of interaction between American and the Asian, the Vietnamese people. So I know that these two conversations are very, very different.
Yeah.
But I should know how to structure this so we can all cohesively all participate. So
Right.
let's see if we're gonna focus the next 10 minutes asking question about one person, and the next 10 minutes we'll ask another person, and then we're gonna all participating in what the personal experience we each have with the story the other person tell. How's that go?
Good.
Okay. So okay, Art, let's go with you. That tell us about what year were you out on the ship, and where was it about in the ocean that the ship was sailing or cruising, and where did you spot those people? Did you spot it? Who spotted it? And what's the commotion? How did it all happen?
Well, it was May 1980, virtually a year after you were rescued.
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
almost the exact year. That's why when you had your Zoom call, I started thinking this would be really weird when you were talking May. But we were in the South China Sea. I believe we had left Thailand and we were heading up toward Hong Kong. So we were somewhere in the South China Sea. I'm not a navigator. My job was a reactor operator. So I was typically down inside the ship. But I was on duty that day. So, you know, the ship turned around, and it would have been spotted by probably one of our lookouts, more than likely.
Mm-hmm.
And the orders were, if there were refugees, we would pick them up, you know, obviously. So we turned around, we put the gangplank down, which is basically steps that go from, you can see the surface of that ship all the way into the water. And I was toward the top. There were people at the bottom, and then I was toward the top. And we were basically escorting, or in some cases carrying people up to the main deck of the ship to get them off the rafts. And from what I remember, and I don't know if this was from people who were English speaking, who were Vietnamese, or if we had Vietnamese speaking people, but they had said they had been robbed by pirates, exactly like in your story. They had been robbed. They were basically, I think, without food and without water.
Mm-hmm.
And the ages ranged from children to the elderly. So I believe these were probably family units, a number of family units that were coming over, because obviously the children and the young, they came on board just fine. They didn't need much help. Some of the older people needed help. And we had, on a ship the size of ours, we had a full doctor. So we had a regular doctor on board, and that which was fortunate because he started treating people. Once they set up sleeping quarters, latrine, they got people fed, then he started treating the sick.
They are, I would say that they are the poster child of refugee. I mean, that's like every single person's hope, that they just sail out to the open sea and some merchant ship. What is better than American ship actually rescue them?
Well, the advantage to an American ship is they all were given refugee status to the US.
Right.
They would not go to another country.
Oh my God.
So there were many that, and I still remember, and I think I sent you a copy of the notes for the speech I gave years ago, but there was an older man we had brought on board. And I just remember the smile.
Yes, because you know, you go into a different country, you have to wait for the status. You got to wait months and months and months. You don't know when, and sometimes even years. So you get rescued, but whatever ship out there, they automatically have to take you to their country. So did they all like ship to Guam or somewhere that American base right away?
We went up to Hong Kong, and then
Okay.
they were put in I guess a refugee center. I don't know what it would be, but we brought boats alongside the ship, and then they were sent to that center for processing. But what we were told is they would be processed and they would come to the US.
Yeah, so they're the shortest amount of time compared to everybody else.
because it was a US flagged military ship, and
Right,
refugee status, I think, is once it's granted on that ship,
right,
I think it's similar to being granted as though you're on US soil.
right.
So then it's just a
So,
matter of processing and coming over. So they probably came over much quicker than you did.
oh
When I
yeah,
read your book, it took you a long time to
yeah,
get to the US.
yeah, absolutely. So lucky them, and I'm so glad that. So since then, do you have any like personal interactions or anything with the Vietnamese people?
Well, certainly not from that group. Now, when I got out of the Navy, I went to college in San Diego. So there was a large Vietnamese population there. And
Okay.
from what I could tell, nobody really talked about their ordeal on coming to the country. It was later on, about 10, 15 years later,
Yeah,
when I was working, one of my coworkers was Vietnamese, and he was starting to open up
yeah.
about things that had gone on, because he
It's
came
too
over
painful. It
as a
was too
child.
painful to even talk about it. And plus, people are busy making a living, surviving. So, were you how long were you on the cruise ship? I mean, after that, were you spotted any more boats, or
That was it. Let's see, Hong Kong, May, we were back US shores by July. So we probably hit a few other areas. Trying to think. After Hong Kong, I think we hit Korea. I don't really remember. It's been so many years.
But no more boats, no more refugee boats
There
being
were
rescued.
no refugees, but as you went through the South China Sea, obviously you were looking for them.
Yeah,
And they were, from my recollection, they were not in good shape. They needed to be
right.
rescued.
Yeah, none of them. I mean, if they're lucky, they didn't get robbed from the Thai people. But I think May is still kind of relatively calm because the typhoon season is not quite there yet. But a few months later, toward fall, that's when things can be really rough. But well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I mean, it's just like, it's incredible. And I'm sure that you probably ponder and wondering what's happening with those people from
Well,
time to time.
I think a lot of them probably worked hard and became successful. I had a classmate in college. She was from Vietnam. She had come over probably as a refugee. And the poor thing, she was smart and she hated engineering, but she was going to persevere and get her engineering degree
Because
because
probably her parents want her to be an
she
engineer.
did not want to disappoint her father. And I remember talking with her, and she would sometimes be in tears. She
Oh,
said,
gosh,
I
yeah.
don't like this, but she said, I will never disappoint my father, because
Yeah.
she worked so hard.
Right. So that we're going to switch to culture. So that's the culture of the Vietnamese on the Asian. And Larry, I thank you so much for sharing that, because yes, when we were young, when I was in Vietnam, I have close friends and a bunch of girls. We always linked arm, walk on the street, and even adult, man linked arm with man and woman linked arm with women. And yes, we show affectionate to the same sex, but we never really see people show affectionate in public about, a couple or lovers or anything. And that is like totally against our tradition. So thank you for bringing that up, because a lot of people would say, "Ooh, look at them. They're just like, But yeah, it is a big part of the culture. And I feel weird doing it now after being here for so many years. It's just because that you think that eyes are spotting at you, thinking people are looking at you when you do anything that socially unacceptable, right? But it's all depending which society you're in. So Larry, tell us what year was that you were serving, and you said that you were there for 11 months. So, and another culture I want to tell you is we never really take picture of the scene. We always take picture of people, and American are very big on scenic. Asian is always about me in the picture. So that's a funny story.
Yeah, I found that out right away. but and it's okay because now I have those pictures to go back and look at, and I see my friend and his family and the other people that I really don't know what happened to after the war. You know, he was a sergeant in the Arvin Army, and his brother-in-law, whose family I was close with, he was a major in the Vietnamese Army. And I'm not sure what happened to either him, either my friend or his brother-in-law and their family, because they had 7 children and were expecting another one when I left.
Yeah.
I was there from May of 71 until the beginning of April 72, and I was relieved of duty about 2 days after the spring offensive of 72 started, where the mini tanks rolled down across the Quang Tri into Quang Tri province. And
Have you
which
ever
was
made to
actually
Saigon?
I was in Phu Bai near Hue
Okay.
when that happened, but I actually left Vietnam from Saigon.
Okay, because Hue is quite a ride. Hue is central Vietnam, and Saigon is in the south, which is the capital of Vietnam. I just want to tell people because some people don't know where Hue is.
And Hue was right close to the DMZ. You had Hue and then Da Nang and then Saigon. So you had to fly from Hue to Da Nang and Da Nang then on to Saigon. And it was, for several weeks before the beginning of April, we saw truckload after truckload of South Vietnamese soldiers going north. And when I left from the airport, all the hangars were full of South Vietnamese wounded soldiers.
Yeah. And
they were coming back. But that was the beginning of what was eventually going to happen in 75, 74, into 74 and 75 with the fall.
Yeah.
But
did you know anything about Vietnam and Vietnamese before you went?
Absolutely nothing, really. That being at the University of North Carolina and then finishing at a different university. And when I got out, it was right after they pulled the first draft lottery, and my number was like 118. And you know, I didn't even know I was going to have to go in service until after I graduated was in September of 69, and in early April of 70, I was called by the Army recruiter, and he said, "Your name is coming up in the May draft." So instead of waiting for the draft, I went ahead and joined the Army Security Agency. One of the lies that they told us was, "You're not in Vietnam. Army Security Agency is not in Vietnam." Okay. So anything to keep us away from having to go to Vietnam was what everybody signed up for. Little did we know then that once we finished school, they changed us from Army Security Agency to radio research when we went to Vietnam, because we all had top secret clearances, and everything was top secret that we did. So we couldn't really talk about it, what all we did while we were there. So we were actually undercover as radio research.
That's why you couldn't go to a certain place and mingle with people, because
because of that. But I never discussed anything of what I did with any of my Vietnamese friends, because it wasn't
you don't
acceptable.
know.
Even my mother and father didn't know what I was doing. So, but
I'm just amazed. Only a short 11 months, and you were able to immersed yourself so much into the culture. You even get
Well,
Vietnamese name.
yeah, I was fortunate enough that my Vietnamese friend decided to give me a Vietnamese name. So,
And all the
uh,
singers and all the, it's
yeah,
like, holy cow.
I could be kin to you because the family name is Tran,
Mhm.
but because that was his family name, he gave me that. Then he gave me his girlfriend's family name as the middle name. And because of one of your Vietnamese singers that I
Singer.
liked, he gave me his first name,
Yeah, Phạm Duy.
Phan Duy. So yeah,
Just
and
wonderful.
eventually all those Vietnamese friends that I knew that were soldiers would call me that whenever I passed. But it was because I like music. I love the Vietnamese music, so he showed me all the famous Vietnamese singers of that time. And then I was fortunate to be able to take a temporary duty assignment for a week to Saigon at the same time he was home on leave. And he was able to introduce me to his sister and brother-in-law and their 7 children, which from then on, every time I went to Saigon, I was able to go and visit.
No, so you left in 1972. So after you left Vietnam, there's still 3 more years of the South democracy.
Yeah.
So you didn't have any relation or in touch after you come back to United States.
I wrote my sergeant friend several letters back and forth, but because I was still in the military and until 73, when I got out in August, I didn't really have an opportunity to correspond too much.
Okay.
And
And now
then
you completely lost touch.
And then after the Saigon fell, I completely lost touch with that whole family and
Yeah.
my friend and a lot of the other soldiers that I knew as well. And unfortunately, I haven't been able to make contact with any of
Right.
them.
So this is a question that I think is going to be a little hard. So when you come back from Vietnam to United States, how were you received? And what did you feel?
Well, I was received by family very well. Fortunately, on the day that I left Vietnam, we flew directly from Saigon to Philippines, and then from the Philippines to Okinawa, and then Okinawa to Hawaii, Hawaii to Travis Air Force Base in California. I got off the plane, went through customs, got in a taxi, and went to San Fran International. Got on a plane there and flew from San Francisco to Atlanta. 2 hours later, a plane from Atlanta to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then my father met me there and I was home. So I didn't run into any opposition from a lot of the students like some of them did. Some of them came through the airport in San Francisco and were spit on.
Oh.
And yeah.
Well,
But
that was tough. That I want to say that, from the bottom of my heart, you are totally appreciated.
thank you, Lea. In reading some of the stories of the Vietnamese refugees that have come in through the airport, I was reading one that I'm not sure whether it was your side or Sarah's or Amy's, but one of them had said that the only word that they had been taught for hello was hello. And they didn't realize any other word could mean hello. And so when they came in to the US, they were met by someone that was in the airport, and he said hi. And because they realized and understood hi meaning two in Vietnamese, he replied ba. And I
That's
thought
another
that was
culture
pretty
thing,
funny,
yes.
but,
And there's a Chinese name
Yeah.
called Hai, means ocean. So
Yeah.
when people say hi, and people in Chinese usually say, how does he know my name is Ocean? How does he know my name is Hai? So it's a lot of funny culture
right.
language thing, but I am so glad that you get a chance to emerge in the culture that seems so distant away now. I mean, I've been away for 41 years, 42 almost. And yeah, I'm still a little apprehensive every time I'm thinking about booking a trip back there. So things have changed. Obviously, any country, right? You get out, it will change. But I don't know. Sarah been to Cambodia, back to Cambodia.
Yeah, I went back. I didn't recognize anything.
Yeah.
Everything changed. The only thing that I recognize are people. That's all
Oh, I don't even have too many people. My mom went back a bunch of time, and every time she come back, all the pictures are totally different, and all the stories she bring back just got me a little bit more apprehensive. But I know I have to reconcile, take a trip and take my son, hopefully one day with my husband. But thank you for sharing that. That's a lot of culture thing that we can talk. That misunderstanding is very easily between the two culture. So that's definitely a conversation we need to keep going, because a lot of time when people don't understand and people would frown and people would say, what you talking about? Like, gesture that doesn't sound like, doesn't even look like friendly, but it's actually certain word might be offensive or this or that, but it's just how communication need to be developed so we can understand more. But we're going to go back to art. Yeah.
I want to say one other thing, Leah, in response to Sarah's question about what did I know about Vietnam. Like I said, I knew nothing. So all of a sudden I found myself in Vietnam, and I said, I'm going to be here a whole year almost. And I don't want this to be a place where I don't know anything about, because this is a place where I will be living for a year, and it would be like a second country, a second home. And so that's why I took the opportunity every chance I get to learn about the music, the food, the customs, and the people. Knowing that maybe one day I might be able to share that back with someone.
Yeah, that's very admirable. That's very admirable, because a lot of times people say, oh, I'm just going to be here. I'll get out it quickly.
And my experience in Vietnam was completely different than some of the soldiers who were there earlier at the beginning of the war, when they were just on the ground and all the fighting, and the ones that were killed. And today, being Memorial Day, is in memory of all those who didn't come back.
Yeah.
Over 58,000 plus that were killed or still missing in action. So that's one of the things that we need to remember, those people on this day.
You're absolutely right. I think it's all depending what experience people are being through at that time. If you're in the front and you confronting with VC or with the village people who are spy undercover, and they can be very unfriendly, it could be a whole set of different experience.
Right.
Now you in the city and you got people who trusting you and befriended you, so the experience is different. And I want to say that, I wish they talk more about the Vietnam War in the school, in the classroom, because I think things are just kind of brushed through, and there's a lot of stories that need to be shared.
Right.
So Art is younger. So in the 70s, he was still probably in middle school.
Yeah, I was in grade school, middle school. I mean, I graduated high school in 77.
Right. So your experience, were you against Vietnam War growing up? Were you know, like 77? Yeah, it's like, no, it's after that. That is communists already took over. What were you like? Tell me a little bit about your experience with the Asia country that people have to deploy over there. Did you have any?
Well, I visited a number of countries, and I've since 2004 had the opportunity to go to China, which is the place I always wanted to go. But back obviously in 1980, you were not going to go to China, a closed communist country. I did, when we were in Hong Kong, walk up to the gate to China. So we could say, you know, there was some of us, group of us friends, so we could say, we've looked at China. We saw it. We got that close.
Were you afraid? You want to go China? Weren't you afraid?
No,
No?
no, we wanted to see China. And
Yeah.
we could go up to a gate. So that's China on the other side. That's the best we were going to do. Then, of course, after it opened up, we could go over there. I very much enjoyed. I spent 2.5 weeks in China, but in the Navy, we did the typical Western Pacific cruise: Philippines, Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand. Couple stops in Japan. The last stop in Japan was to acquire stereo equipment, because that
Were you
was,
able to get off the boat and enjoy the city for a little while?
yeah, we were able to get off most of the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we, now in places like Hong Kong, because we were nuclear powered, we had to take a small boat back and forth. They would not allow us to berth up on a pier. So we were out in the water, out in the bay. And I think Hong Kong was that way. And I'm trying to think if Singapore was that way as well. In Japan, they put us in a dry dock because we were nuclear powered, and they were sensitive about that. So we were berthed, but we were basically in a dry dock full of water.
Oh, okay. So you
And
were
same
pretty
with
much,
Korea. And now we were also a very large ship, so it's not necessarily entirely due to that. That was a very big ship, and it's actually the sister ship to the USS Enterprise. They were built at the same time. So that, I forget the length of it, but it displaces over 14,000 tons.
ooh.
You know, obviously.
So how long altogether on all those years that you were out in the ocean, just cruising around?
Well, the Western Pacific is a particular cruise. We were out of San Diego, so we would do operations in and out of San Diego, but we were actually berthed at Coronado, which is a North Island naval base, because of the size of our ship. It was the aircraft carriers and cruisers could not go into the main naval base because we were too big.
What other experience that you remember from all those Asia country that I mean, which countries stand out, and what memories that you have most that you can share with us?
China. And when I came back from China, I bought all kinds of Chinese music. Like music, and I think you can tell.
In Cantonese, in Mandarin, or what dialect?
Probably they were mostly singing in
Mandarin.
But I also own a Chinese erhu instrument. That's the 2-string
right
violin.
Right.
I have one.
Right.
It's a nice one. My
You know how to
daughter
play?
My daughter actually took it to college and played it for a while, because the 2 strings on it are the 2 middle strings on a violin, and the fingering is very similar. It's the bowing that's different.
My husband has one passed on from his father. It's like
Okay.
only 2 string. We still have it.
It's a sad sounding instrument, but
Yeah.
I bought DVDs. I went online and I started, I actually paid for certain training videos and so on, and I learned how to play it.
Well, both of you are very inclined with music. I mean, I think the music is what you remember most. So any of you still listening to either Chinese or Vietnamese music?
I have that available once in a while. Yeah. The CDs have all been ripped onto MP3s, so they're available when I'm driving. My wife even bought me some Erhu music as I was learning to play the instrument so I could hear it and try to imitate, playing it. But it's very interesting. And of course, the food. I like, my wife's the same way. We like different food. So and when I was in China for the whole 2.5 weeks, I ate like a pig and I lost weight. So what does that tell you?
Probably because you walk a lot.
I walked a lot, but I think the food was just that much better.
You get the real authentic food.
It makes you lose weight. You eat a lot and it makes you lose weight.
The quantity of rice was very small. We ate mostly vegetables and fish and so on. So the whole diet was much healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Larry? Do you miss Vietnamese food?
Oh yes, I miss some of it, and speaking of the music, I still listen to Kind Lee or Lea Tran.
Oh my God, Can Lei, yeah, my cousin
and,
always listening to her. She's
fortunately, I brought quite a bit of that music back with me from Vietnam, and was able to share it with the Vietnamese family that came into our county, the ones that I work with. And really the young man that I was assigned to, they assigned us one-on-one individually with certain members of each family. And the one that I was assigned to was in his early 20s. And he had been teaching English at the refugee camps. So the survival English course that we were supposed to be working with them, I didn't have to use very much, and completely surprised him when I asked him if he knew all of these singers, and I called their names, and he was like, wow.
I know, you
from?"
surprised me when you texted me, and I was like, wow.
And then when I told him my Vietnamese name, he was even more shocked.
Okay.
But
Talk about
yeah,
total immersion.
yeah. But being like most of the refugees that I've read about, they were very quiet about the experiences they had in the refugee camp and everything. And it's only within the last month that I've been able to make contact with both he and his brother, because he lives in Cleveland, Ohio, and works with NASA, and his brother lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and works at Fort Bragg as a civilian contractor. And that I've recently made contact with them again, and I've been able to ask them about it now and talk to them about it.
Wonderful.
They're not quite as secretive as they used to be.
Right. When I was writing my story, and I had a little writers group in my local area here. So I told them about my story, and then one person, he said this, it's like usually PTSD people will wait about 40 years to tell about their story. So it's very similar with a lot of veterans come home and claim, World War II veterans or Vietnam War veterans, anybody who've been through trauma, they won't talk about it for at least 40 years, even the Holocaust, people who are victim. And it just dawned on me that, yeah, he's right. I mean, most of the people, like, you just want to forget about the pain. You want to forget about what you've been through and just focus on the future and moving forward. But after 40 years, you finally feel like, okay, it is time to open up, and hopefully we can heal it this time. So so that's why I think there's especially during the COVID-19 too, people got so much time in their hands. So lots of people start writing books.
Yeah, and this family that came in they were arrived in our community in the late 1978, 78. So they came over not too many years after the Saigon fell.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for the main reason is that they were afraid of what their neighbors may tell on them. You know, you couldn't worship religion unless you did it in secret,
Right.
and there was no, if a group of people got together, you didn't know who to trust and who did.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it was,
it's terrifying.
yeah, and outside of this one family telling me that a little earlier, I had no idea what the people went through in Vietnam after the war, which was one reason that Amy's novel Snow in Vietnam was so informative for me. You know, I
Right.
got a lot. I was able to help me understand what happened in Saigon, what happened in Vietnam after the war was over.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah, so there's a lot of personal stories out there floating around, and hopefully we get to hear more of that. But any last thoughts, any last remark that either of you can tell us about the experience you have as a veteran, and any remarkable things that happened you want to share before we close?
And not along those lines, but getting back to your book, I was very interested in reading that because I wanted to know what is the story that leads people up to going out on a raft or a boat in the middle of the ocean, because that is an incredible act of desperation that people go through. And that's a conscious choice they're all making, that this is my best option. And reading your book, you gave us the cultural background and some of your personal experiences so we could build on what that took to get to that point. And then, of course, after coming here, the whole issue of settling and learning and trying to deal with a whole new country where everything is completely different.
Well, thank you, because that's the whole purpose. I want people to get a glimpse of it, of the people being affected by the war. What happened during the war, after the war, and even when we get out to a new country. The struggle, just another chapter of beginning. So I thank you for reading my book, and I hope it satisfies the curiosity.
I read it twice.
Thank you. So,
When
So
when
any-
you mentioned 40 years, that's exactly 40 years when I start writing my book. The fall of Cambodia was 1975 when the Khmer Rouge communists took over, and I lived through that. And then I published my book in 2015. So exactly 5 years. No, 40 years.
40 years.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Larry, you were about to say something. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you didn't interrupt. What I was just saying is that I think by reading your books, and if more people would read them, then they would have more of an understanding about what you have been through, and would have a little more empathy and understanding of the Asian community in the US, and instead of reacting with so much hate as they're doing in some areas, would show a little more love to the Asian community.
well, thank you so much both for sharing that. And we, like I said, we really, really appreciate, first of all, your service, that really providing all the freedom that we're benefiting. And second of all, for having that curiosity to understand the culture that's far and away, and you once has interaction and saying good words about it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That will conclude our Memorial Day. I feel super, super happy, get a chance to talk to both of you. And I hope people will replay And I just can't say thank you enough.
Thank you for inviting us to Leah on this day.
Thank
And
you.
Sarah.
Thank you for being here with us on a special day. It means a
Thank you,
lot to
Sarah.
us. Mhm.
Good meeting you, Larry.
Good meeting you too, Art. I wish you the best of luck as well. Look forward to seeing you and talking to you again, possibly.
Will do.
Yes, and if you have any other story you want to share, anyone want to share their story, we love stories, and we love thriving story. We love story about culture, story about things that the world needs to know, but people are too afraid to talk about it, to tell about it. So that concluding our Memorial Day weekend, and please continue celebrate and take a moment to remember the people who serve and who fight for this country. And we want to wish you the best remaining of Monday, and back to work tomorrow. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.